America is at its great reckoning point where there can be no real excavation because there's no desire to face the truth. They don't want the truth. They want an erasure of the truth. They want to criminalize the truth. They want to make everything about the truth and those that embody it illegal. So what does, and I tell you, folks, whether you're queer, whether you're black, whether you're brown, whether, you're from any community that has been marginalized, even if you are not, they are coming for you next, right? Like this is what, and I keep saying this, we learn about the fall, Waj, of so many different empires, right? In school. You learn about the fall of the empire, but you know what they never cover? What has happened to the people? What happens to the people while their empires are crumbling? This is where we are in American society right now, which is as our democracy is crumbling all around us, this disorientation, this anxiety, this fear, this hopelessness mashed with I'm going to fight tooth and nail. We are really suffering in such a horrific way because it's like, how do you watch something that you have loved and only known die and it seemed like you're the only one that's screaming that it's happening?
Well, it goes back to the point, right, of feeling gaslit. And it goes back to what I shared was my initial response to what I knew what was happening was that I got canceled for speaking the truth was, oh, maybe it's my fault. Maybe I did something wrong. Did I offend? It's like we gaslight ourselves from the truth that we experience and live every day because we are surrounded in this white supremacy Earth 3 bubble that needs myths and lies and stories filled with falsehoods to make them feel comfortable. And when we do succeed, Danielle, as what happened with Tulsa, is that this was a black town. You have to imagine, folks, 100 years ago, right? Like more than 100 years ago, black town where through self-reliance and grit and resilience and strength and community bonds, they created a successful black town with black-owned businesses, with educated black folks, with them pretty much being self-reliant, and it was like a model. And that existence of that small town and black wealth was so threatening to white supremacy that they bombed them. There was planes that literally shot at them, right? There was a full-scale massacre. And so it comes to the point where you fast forward 100 years and you see the number one indicator for Trump voters. It wasn't economic anxiety, folks. Every study has shown that it was cultural anxiety. For them, it's a zero-sum game. If any of us succeed, they believe it comes at their expense. The analogy I always give, let's go back to the corporation. Great granddaddies in America, granddaddies and daddies, when they looked at the boardroom, it was 10 white guys. Maybe our generation saw one woman and one black person. Maybe the new generation sees two women, one woman of color, and one Latino. For us, Danielle, it's like, yay, we have a seat at the table. For them, they're replacing us.
Yep. It's just, when I think about Tulsa, when I think about the fact that it wasn't the only successful black town, these were black towns of wealth and prominence that were existing inside of the white supremacist structure that was created called segregation, right? These white folks didn't want to have anything to do with black people. The black folks said, bet, got it.
Yep.
We'll be on our own. But it wasn't enough because you see, what is the point, Waj, that you see? Cruelty, right? It isn't enough for black people or people of color to exist, and is successfully so, distant from whiteness. Your existence must be only successful if it is in servitude
That's right.
to whiteness. And that's what I want folks to understand, because segregation could have actually worked, right? Like it could have actually worked if you had left Black people the hell alone. But then whiteness couldn't work without oppression.
Yeah.
And so when you see, again, marginalized communities successful, all they see is them losing seats at the table, like you said. When they see an administration like the Obama administration or the Biden administration that is filled with, right, people of color, that has trans people at some of the highest levels of government, right? They don't see success. This is what a country that believes in democracy and freedom should look like. They see replacement.
Yep. Erasure.
So what do they do in return? Overcorrect, right? And instead of having the ability to send planes in and bomb the areas in Florida that they don't like, or to bomb and torch, they create legislation that does the job of decimation.
It's, speaking of erasure, overcorrecting with violence, we're moving on from AAPI month to Pride month. This episode will drop on the first day of Pride. And speaking about wilding out and white supremacy, Danielle, to show the through line of how all this is connected and affects all of our communities, I just wanted to ask you, as an open Black queer woman, how do you feel entering this Pride month? Because as an observer, if you will, as a Muslim man, a son of Pakistani immigrants, the conversation I've had with many of my friends who are not gay is the following. We are worried that this Pride month will be filled with a lot of violence. We're terrified that certain communities and stores are going to be targeted, harassed, and threatened. And we're afraid of violence, pockets of violence erupting all across the nation, specifically targeting LGBTQ plus companies, organizations, and their allies. But what's your take on this?
So a couple of things, and I'm going to give my other show a big plug because Pride is very big on Woke AF. And the theme this year on Woke AF is you can't ban queer joy. And, how do I feel as a Black queer woman going into this Pride? I have had many conversations with, the leaders of Drag Storytime, with queer organizers in Florida. One organizer whom I had to exit the conversation early because I was going to burst into tears in the interview as I was listening to this queer woman talk about organizing the first Pride in rural Florida that is now under attack. And they are worried about violence, but they are going to push forward. And the reality is that Pride started as a riot. Pride started at Stonewall in the 1960s as a pushback led by Black trans women against police brutality of the queer community, and they had had enough. And so for me, Pride, I vacillated between my feelings, and it has expanded and retracted and expanded again over time because of the corporatization and the rainbowing it up that corporations were happy to do over the course of the last decade, and now are retreating from because of being called out by bigots. And so for me, Pride is very much a revolutionary act. It is about standing firmly on your ground, in your skin, in your body, owning who you are, not being defined by other people, by a system that doesn't want to see your fullness and your humanity. And so how do I feel going into Pride? Yeah, I feel like there is going to be violence, like I feel about going into every election cycle since Donald Trump came down the escalator, right? But does that mean that people should back down? No, it means that people should take all of the precautions that they can. But at the end of the day, Waj, guess what? We're at war every day, all day, because you and I can be shot walking out of our house, going to a concert, going to the grocery store, going to the mosque, going to a place of worship, going to school, right? So we are living in violent times. It doesn't matter if it's Pride Month or it's Ramadan, or it's a Jewish celebration, or it's AAPI month or Women's History Month. It doesn't matter. This is America now, right? It is a violent nation. And so for those people, particularly this Pride Month, I tell you, be safe, be vigilant, but be joyful, right? Like, we have got to continue to press on. Part of resistance is being in places of joy, right? And so do not succumb to the hate, right? And say, like, find community wherever you can find community and build it, because that is where you will find your safety. But how do I feel this Pride Month? I feel like I need to grow from a place of power, and I need to turn my rage into a consistent place of resilience. Because it isn't about me. It's not even about the people it is about young people who are now seeing a world that they don't see themselves in. And I'll be damned if they're forced back into the closet.
Joy is a intentional act of resistance. Sometimes people forget that, smiling and holding your head up high with pride while the world shits on you is an act of rebellion. And I think it's something that people should always remember, that you being happy and you smiling and you finding joy in just hopeless times is perhaps sometimes the biggest slap in the face of the bigot. Like, why? Why are they happy? Why are they proud? Why are they empowered? Why are they walking with dignity? Why, damn it? I've tried to stomp them, and yet they keep rising like flowers from concrete, gardens from concrete. And so, as we end API month and we go to Pride and corporations are waving their flags and inviting us, I think it's time to end the performative BS. It's also time to end the cowardice and the fear. It's okay to be vigilant and concerned. But the last thing I would want people to say is, for those who are listening, right? If you're not Muslim, if you're not Asian, if you're not Black, if you're not queer, this fight includes all of us. Mm-hmm. They're coming after all of us. They're banning all of our stories. They want an America where them and they alone are at the top and their boots are on our necks, that they are the masters of the house, and we should be grateful that they have rented us a room. And I'll be damned if I tell my kids that's their legacy. My kids will not be sidekicks or punchlines or villains. They will not be renting when they're the co-owners. And they will not be sidekicks when they're the co-protagonists.